Awareness, awareness, awareness. The heart of the gospel is about growing awareness on our part. This whole beautiful Christmas Epiphany season is about awareness. Awareness that in the fullness of time, God sent his only son to become a human being. And awareness on the part of the shepherds representing the chosen people. Yes, this is the one. But that awareness didn't stop there. Awareness was that this is not just a God for a few people, but it's a God for all the nations. And so the Magi come to represent, if you will, the rest of the world. Awareness that this is the Lord of all creation, that this Christ is bringing a whole new vision of how we are to live in relationship with one another, how we are to live in relationship with God. And so now we have this last, if you will, manifestation that is part of our liturgical year, the baptism of the Lord. And there is the Spirit saying, "This is my beloved Son." And if you go to the different accounts in the Synoptic Gospels, it has different takes on the phrase. "This is my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased" is in this one. But in St. Mark's Gospel, it says, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." Listen to him. And so we come here to listen to this one who is the chosen of God. And what does he have to say to us? Well, St. John's letter, the first letter in the 5th chapter, is an interesting thing. He says, 3 elements give testimony to Christ. 3 elements, and they are water, blood, and the Spirit. And these 3, he says, are one. And maybe we can take a look at those 3 testimonies because they are, if you will, our connectors to Christ as we make our way, as we grow in awareness, as we come to see this broader vision of who we are as human beings and who we are in relationship to God and to one another. And so the water, the connector, of course, for us is the sacramental life of the church, that God chooses us. Sometimes I have people who come to me in the sacrament of reconciliation, and they're struggling. They're struggling with their self-worth. Things aren't going well in their life, wondering if God's forsaken them. And many times I used to have a little slip of paper, and I used to hand it to them and say, "This is your penance. I want you to just repeat this prayerfully." And it said, "You are my beloved son. You are my beloved daughter. In you I am well pleased." We need to take that to heart. We need to take that to heart. Because our world isn't always saying that, are they? We're dividing the world up into the good guys and the bad guys, and these people don't count, and these people, yeah, we can kill that one, yeah, they don't matter. No, you, all of you. And so the sacrament of baptism, while we are privileged to receive it, is a sacrament meant for all people. God would long to pour that water over every single human being. And part of our charge is to bring that good news to the ends of the earth. And then there's the Spirit. In this baptism of the Lord, after he's baptized, the Spirit comes down upon him. And indeed, that same Spirit comes down upon us. It's not just we're washed clean of sin. We are a Spirit-filled people. We are given a share in this very life of Christ. And we are called to live as Spirit-filled people. How does that play out? How does that play out in your life? What does it look like? I had the opportunity yesterday to be at our monthly reunion of the prisoners at Menard State Penitentiary who have made the Kairos retreat down there. And it's always amazing to me to be in the presence of these men whom our world has written off as no good, unworthy of life in our community, and to hear them talk of their faith. You see, in Matthew 25, Jesus says, "You saw me in prison and you visited me. He doesn't say, go to prison and visit these people, bring me in there. And I can tell you, every time I sit at table with these men and share faith, it's amazing. You know that the Spirit of God is there, moving in a very difficult, challenging situation. And to see these men, we had 72 men at this reunion, committed to living the Christ life, supporting one another in it, being alive to what the Spirit is saying and not what all of the peer pressure is saying, was truly inspiring. Inspiring. And then there's that third element, the blood. The blood. Well, that doesn't play out so much in this season of Christmas Epiphany, although we begin to see the implications of it when we have the Feast of the Holy Innocents, right? The blood is already beginning to be spilled. And Jesus, in his mission, if you go back to Isaiah, to the first song of the servant, God says, your mission is not to promote the violence that already wreaks havoc on our world. You are there to bring a whole new paradigm, to bring peace, to bring a sense of acceptance in a world that is so bent on making right the violence in our world by perpetrating more violence. And so all of that violence, if you will come crashing down on Jesus. It will be his blood poured out for us that will, if you will, cement this new vision of how we are to live. Living our lives for God is not going to be bloodless. Living our lives for God is not going to be easy. Living our life for God is not going to be according to the current standards of our world. But we begin this ordinary time tomorrow to ask ourselves, how is that Spirit animating my life in my everyday dealings? How willing am I to embrace this vision that Christ holds out for us in his public ministry? Because it's nice that he was born as the Son of God, it's nice that he rose from the dead, but what happened in between there? Somebody once said, if you go to the creed, there is a comma between born of the Virgin Mary and suffered under Pontius Pilate. Somebody said, that's the great comma. Man, a lot happened between those two things, you know? And that's what we want to do as we enter into ordinary time. We want to watch how Jesus dealt with people, dealt with authorities, dealt with the sinners, dealt with religious leaders, dealt with all of these challenging situations. What's the Spirit he brought? How did he deal with that? And how can I learn from that? How can I come to a greater awareness of a whole new way to live? Not one that's being foisted on us in a world bent on violence and fear and separation, but one which sees things from the eyes of Peter in the house of Cornelius, from the eyes of the prophet Isaiah, given that vision to share, through the eyes of John the Baptist, who watched the Spirit descend on Jesus.